I got a hot take. So I like this documentary better than the. So let's get into it, man, and I'll just give some background regarding the film. It's available on Netflix now as of this recording, so go check it out. This follows the story of the 2008 U.S. Olympic men's basketball team and how the Redeem team set a new standard for American basketball. Documentary's 98 minutes, pretty easy to go through. Check out this roster, man. So this is the roster of the team here. So it's Carlos Boozer, Jason Kidd, LeBron James, Darren Williams, Michael Redd, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant was the captain, Dwight Howard, Chris Bosh, Chris Paul, Tayshaun Prince, and Carmelo Anthony, with the head coach being Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, with assistant coaches being Jim Boeheim, Nate McMillan, and Mike D'Antoni. So a pretty loaded roster there. Just some background that's heading into this review.
Absolutely. So, we do have a little bit of bias in that we're friendly with Jon.
Yeah.
But, we're still going to give you guys a fair, well thought out review. But yeah, I do want to give him a shout out and say thank you to
For
Netflix
sure. Yes.
and everyone involved. And I think it'd be good to kind of set the stage here in terms of the timeline of events of the film. So I'll go through that just briefly. I think the film does a great job in covering a lot of international basketball history, specifically Olympic basketball history, in a short amount of time to set this up. They could have really, really drawn it out, but you get events dating back to 1972 in terms of the Olympic Games in Munich, where Team USA, of course, lost to the Soviet Union, kind of sets up events leading to eventually the formation of the Dream Team in 1992. We've talked about that on our channel before. We definitely have Dream Team content, so you can look that up. But I mean, were you born under a rock? Of course, you know about the 92 Dream Team, arguably the greatest team ever assembled. So talks about the 92 Dream Team a bit, talks about how the climate changed after 9/11, causing the pool of talent to shrink for the 2004 Olympics team, which played in Athens. And as you all know, this 2008 team is the Redeem team because that 2004 team did lose. They, maybe were a little bit unfair to Larry Brown. We can talk about that a little bit later. But really, really kind of made a point that it was time for a coaching change. They get Coach K, and they did a good job also, before we get into our next topic, of showing the growth of the game of basketball from the international perspective as well. You see footage from NBA drafts, and you can see, so a little bit of the ignorance of international talent and international names and just how to pronounce them. You see, I believe Adam Silver and David Stern both mispronouncing names. Ginobili, Ginobili, or Pau Gasol, excuse me. There I go. So you see a little bit of that, but you see the game grow. And mention they get Coach K. That's certainly a big part of this documentary. We can touch on in a bit, but the real turning point, and one of the big points that I wanted to cover with you, Justin, and get your thoughts on right now, is they bring in Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant is maybe the Superman to LeBron's Batman, or I don't know. I'm not super educated on Justice League lore, but Kobe is probably Superman if Superman's the head honcho. What are your thoughts on Kobe Bryant in this documentary? Was he overused? What was your thought on just that, the Kobe content we got?
I thought he was fantastically used, and in the interview you hear with Jon, I think he was shocked of my language of referring to Kobe as godlike. But I think through the film, I think a lot of the players, the way they view Kobe is different than any of their peers. I think when he walked in, he had a certain era about him. And I think I disagree with Jon because I think he said it was more like a big brother relationship, which I feel that's partly true. But just the reverence they had, I mean, they tell the story, and I mentioned it when talking to him, all the the team, they're going out, they're partying, they're drinking. They come back around 4 a.m. There's Kobe getting up, he's working out. And through the film, you see players one by one starting taking up Kobe's workout routine, where there's like the whole team, except Carmelo Anthony. He was pretty funny. He was like, I ain't doing that. I'll see you at breakfast, and then afterwards, I'll go work out with you. I thought that was hilarious. But I think with Kobe, just the work ethic, his passion to win, and I love the hesitancy of the players at first because remember, Kobe's going through a lot of turmoil. I mean, prior
Yeah.
to that team, he was the guy who ran Shaq out. He's the guy who's selfish. He's just a terrible teammate in terms of how the media was describing him, and his other peers were hesitant in terms of how that's going to mold with Team USA. And I think him coming in there and really you saw kind of the transformation within him. I think that really started the metamorphosis within Kobe Bryant because this team's more reference about the big three, but it was also really a transformation for Kobe in terms of his perception with not only the media but with fans. So I just not to be long winded, but I thought the way he's portrayed was fantastic through the film for sure.
One of the best stories I've heard that just pumps me up as a coach personally is a story. You guys can look this up online of Kobe's strength and conditioning coach talking about working with him in the 2008 Olympics and getting to see firsthand just how impressed this strength and conditioning coach is with Kobe Bryant's work ethic. This documentary does a great job of showing that Mamba mentality as it is at different parts too. You have Kobe ramming into Pau Gasol when they first meet against Spain in 2008. So really does a good job of building up Kobe Bryant's legacy. You might say it's almost too shining, but I think it did a good job of bringing up some of those criticisms of Kobe as well.
Yeah, and I just love the scene where it's the preliminary match. It's the first matchup they have with Spain, where Kobe he's just like, I'm just gonna annihilate Pau Gasol on the first play, and the other players are like, "Damn, this guy's serious." He's like, he's gonna do that to his teammate. I love that scene. I think that's pure Kobe, and that sets the tone for the rest of Team USA through the Olympics. I think that's fantastic. Just the way they told that story, and them having Pau as well in the documentary. I think that was critical as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was great to see. And you know what? Thinking through this, one of the things I did take a note on because it was actually my favorite part of Kobe in this documentary, and I don't think it'll be talked about very much, is also the humility and respect that he showed to other Olympians and other teams that
Agreed.
they were playing against. He had
Agreed.
this great quote in there where he says, "Look, these guys came ready. These guys are our opponents. These guys worked as hard as we did to get here." And just talks about respecting them as athletes as well, and also how his admiration grew by going and attending events. At a certain point in the documentary, all the players are at different events, gymnastics, swimming, all these different classic summer games events that we all know and love. So that was really cool to see. Anything else on Kobe, Justin?
No, you pretty much covered it. But I think the way he was portrayed, it was this. You see the influence. You see why so many players were affected so harshly when he passed. And I
Yeah.
think this documentary is a great microcosm of that for sure.
Yeah, he definitely it's a great tribute to Kobe that
Agreed.
is within this documentary. So let's move on. I have a lot more I want to cover before we wrap up this interview, and we do want to keep it kind of brief. So, did you like the documentary overall? So I guess thumbs up, thumbs down, or if you want to do like a however many out of 5 stars, whatever you're
Yeah.
feeling for this, and then also if you have any criticisms for it, and I'll give you
Yeah.
mine.
I got a hot take. So I like this documentary better than The Last Dance.
Hmm,
And remember, I was
it's a hot take.
pretty critical of The Last Dance. Now I gave it a B. I think it's great. I think it's significance now. I think the pandemic, everything, it's huge. It's if you're just a fan trying to get into basketball for the first time, I think The Last Dance is fantastic to get into. I had plenty of criticisms. And maybe I'm biased just due to my fandom of the Chicago Bulls, but I thought this documentary was swift,
Yeah.
moved quickly, had an objective, had so many heartful moments. I thought the interviews, to me, Carmelo Anthony, great in this documentary. I thought Kobe, the footage that they got from him was fantastic also. And LeBron, who knew this guy was a prankster? like, this guy's a comedian. Like, I had no idea in terms of his sense of humor and just him and Kobe, that dynamic. No idea. So all that, and I think just seeing its path through it, I thought it was fantastic because I think a lot of documentaries, my criticism is that it jumps too much around. Like it doesn't really have a objective. It just kind of shows kind of historical facts. It doesn't have really a narrative. And I thought with this documentary, a great narrative. You just saw, hey, the sense of pain that this team went through in terms of not only losing in the 2004 Olympics, but also in international competition too, even when Coach K came on, and just seeing them having to learn from those mistakes and then prevail in the Olympics. So I thought it was fantastic. Criticisms. Um, I thought LeBron. I thought he was pretty wooden through his interview, and I don't know
Yeah,
if it was him
yeah.
or the way that they're asking him questions. I just thought should have been more authenticity through him because we see it through uninterrupted all the time through the shop. So he's just brutally honest there. So we didn't get that in this documentary. I think that's my primary criticism. Is just kind of his authenticity in the film itself. I just thought he had a very serious vibe compared to the other people in the doc. They were very laid back and loose throughout it.
I think that's well said. I agree with just about every point you made there. So you gave Last Dance a B. Are you giving this one an A, B plus?
B
Where are we going
plus.
with that?
B
All right, B
plus.
plus.
Yeah.
I feel you on that, and I think I agree. I think the downfall of the Last Dance, if you love the Bulls, like you said, it's great. You're in
Yes, of
heaven,
course.
but it has a little bit more time spent on it than it needs to. Like you said, I totally agree. This is tighter. This is crisper. Gets to the point. Tells a good story of this team. Sets a good background. Gives you a lot of relevant information through there, shows you a lot of that behind the scenes footage that we want to see as basketball fans. So I'm with you. I'm feeling about a B plus. It's going to be really hard to rate anything in the A range just for you and I both as
Sure.
critics.
Yeah.
So I think B plus is a big compliment. I would certainly tell any basketball fan, yes, go watch this.
100%.
Definitely worth the watch. So not taking anything away from it as far as that goes. And I'm with you on the LeBron scenes. I felt like they didn't really add anything to it. Like
I was
I found
disappointed.
myself
Yeah.
wanting more from the guys that you mentioned, like Melo,
Me too.
good.
Yeah.
Wade, good. Bosch, great. Always funny and entertaining.
Carlos
I,
Boozer.
and I thought
Yeah.
Coach K
Yeah.
as well had some great moments in this. He's a guy you mentioned, like Wooden describing LeBron James. He's a guy that very much seems that way, and that's a guy that's done probably hundreds of thousands of press conferences, interviews at this point. So it's understandable, but you get a little bit more of the character of the locker room, Coach K, in this, which is kind of cool to see. So with that, one of the things that stuck out to me in thinking about the 92 Dream Team and the 2004 team gets upset. Well, that's only 12 years, it turns out.
Yeah.
So we have this, like, our pros are invincible. And it only took 12 years for us to get embarrassed in the international game. What are your thoughts after watching this specifically? Was there anything from this that informs or maybe changes your opinion of Team USA moving forward?
Not really, because I think if you're a fan of basketball now, look who's the top 5 players in the league. I mean, top two, it's Giannis, it is Luca. So I think that is unheard of in terms of in America not being the face of the league. And we're also top 3 with the Joker,
Yeah,
with Djokovic. So
fair point.
you have 3 guys right there that they're fairly popular within the NBA fan base, and they're not American. So I think that tells you right there the rate that the international game has caught up And I just ultimately hope that the sense of entitlement is removed. I just don't like the fact that, like, hey, if the U.S. loses, somehow the game of basketball is like besmirched or disgraced. Like, basketball was invented in Canada. Like, let's just keep it real here. Like, I just feel overall like it's okay eventually if the U.S. loses to another team. It's going to happen. I mean, it is inevitable, and it's going to happen where the U.S. will be fully prepared. They're going to have a full training camp. Everything's going to go well. They're going to get destroyed by whatever team. It's going to happen. And it's not going to be anything in terms of the U.S. being an embarrassment or those guys on their team being a disgrace to their country. They just got outplayed by a better international team. I think that's what we're seeing. Just the competition is leveling up, and I just think that's the evolution of the game. And I think that's what the Dream Team wanted. I think wasn't that the whole point of them going over there and
Well, that was
they're
David Stern's point
yeah,
for
David
sure.
points for sure. And I think the players and somewhat the players too. I mean, they felt ambassadors to the game of basketball, and I think Kobe as well in terms of spreading the love of the game. And I think we're seeing the evolution now in terms of the athletes that we see every night that we're going to see, in the beginning of the season here.
Yeah, I think what I would what I would question, what I would point to, I think it is still a big deal. I think Team USA has a target on its back. If
Sure,
we're playing
of
against
course,
Greece,
100%.
Giannis wants to get that on
Yeah,
as a notch on his belt, so to speak,
yeah,
for his career. Luca, same thing.
hmm
Any of these assassins on these
of
other
course.
teams that are
Yeah,
great players, they
hmm
want this as a notch on their belt. I don't get the sense from even players in this documentary. You see how inspired they are by the at one point they have, I believe it was a general that came in and talked to them about events in Iraq and just soldiers, what they have sacrificed in the past for this country, things along that line to really inspire them. And it does, it affects them. And they talk about that to their credit. I'm glad that they showed that in this documentary. It seems like this is going to go in waves, is kind of my prediction. And with it only taking 12 years after the 92 Dream Team was defeated, it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen more frequently, especially now when the narrative around Team USA, you have owners like Mark Cuban saying, no, I don't want you to go play in international play. I believe he told Dirk Nowitzki, just directly, like, I don't think he forbid him to play, but like, no, if I'm being honest, I don't want you to play. And it makes sense from a business standpoint. He wants to protect his own product, his own asset, so to speak, with his player. It's going to be the same thing for any NBA star. They're going to have that pressure. And if Team USA is relying most heavily on stars from the NBA, there's going to be erosion. You also have more and more conversation nowadays, and you can have any opinion on it that you want, but the narrative that we covered on this show is that this is like a big chore, is kind of how it's looked like. And I don't know that it continues to have, quite frankly, that sense of like honor in representing your country. Now, some of that is players don't want to get that backlash if they lose too. That's fair. Sure. But in any case, I think what you have is this cycle of, we lose, all of a sudden public interest is heightened, everyone cares about it a little bit more, you have motivation to be on that next Redeem Team 2.0 or whatever, we get complacent, and then it happens again. And then, to your point, Justin, to wrap this up, I think we do get to a point where the game expands enough internationally that there is more parity in the international game. um, any other thoughts in closing, or any responses to any of that?
No, I feel you. I think overall, what's going to be fascinating to see is owners restricting players, and then with these fascination of prospects that we're seeing now on social media. I think compared to 10, 20 years ago, a lot of basketball fans, they're very compelled about, look at Victor Wembanyama, right? Like, this guy, he's
Sure.
playing in France, and
Yep.
these guys games are not available every night. And you can see his highlights on YouTube and social media, and that's excitement. That's something that we didn't have 10, 20 years ago. Guys, overtime elite, those games being available, or just your top NBA stars that may be restricted, you may get, your top prospects playing in this international play. It may be compelling to watch as well. So I think that's going to be a very interesting dynamic how that plays out in the future.
Absolutely. Well, that is our review for Redeem Team. You can watch it again on Netflix, and we thank them. And we thank Jon Weinbach for joining the
Yes.
show. Again, you can check out that interview. We want to know your guys' thoughts too. So get at us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you've watched this, let us know your thoughts about it, your criticisms. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? We will be back with content all season long. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast for the full interview clips and beyond, bonus episodes, etc. Got a lot of activity, a lot of content coming from you this season. I'm Matt Thomas. He's Justin Goodrum.
Yep.
Thanks as always. Anything else, Justin?
Email us at hoopsologypod@gmail.com with your comments as well.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Take care and peace out.
See you later.